poor widow begged for work, rancher growled. Only job here is warming my bed, vertical bar. Wild West love story Clara stood at the edge of the dusty road, her shoes worn thin and her dress faded by many days of travel. The wind pushed small clouds of dirt across the ground, and the wide sky above her felt heavy and endless. She held a small cloth bundle close to her chest. Inside were the last things she owned: a simple comb, a folded letter from her late husband, and a silver button that had fallen from his coat long ago. She had walked for hours, following a path that someone in town had pointed out, saying there was a ranch at the far end of the valley. They said the man who lived there was rough, quiet, and did not like strangers. But Clara had no other choice. Her stomach ached with hunger, and her legs felt weak. But she kept moving. She had promised herself she would not stop until she found work. She did not want pity. She wanted a chance to earn her food, her shelter, and her place in the world. The road curved, and at last she saw the ranch. A wide wooden fence surrounded a large piece of land. Beyond it stood a weathered house, a barn, and several horses moving slowly near a water trough. Clara took a deep breath and stepped forward. The gate creaked as she pushed it open. The sound seemed loud in the quiet air. She walked toward the house, her heart beating fast. She reached the porch and raised her hand to knock. But before she could touch the door, it opened. A tall man stood there, his face lined by sun and years of hard work. His dark hair was touched with gray, and his eyes were sharp, as if they had seen too much of the world. This was Caleb, the rancher. He looked at Clara without smiling, without speaking at first. His gaze moved from her dusty shoes to her tired face and the small bundle in her arms. "What do you want?" he finally asked, his voice low and rough. Clara swallowed.
"Sir, I'm looking for work. Any kind."
"I can cook, clean, help with animals. I just need a chance." Caleb let out a short breath that sounded more like a growl than a laugh. "Work?" he said. "There's nothing for you here." Clara felt her face warm, but she did not step back. "Please," she said softly. "I'll do anything honest. I just need a place to stay and something to eat." Caleb crossed his arms. "Only job here is warming my bed," he said, not looking away. The words hit Clara like a cold wind. She felt hurt, but she did not run. Instead, she lifted her chin. "I didn't come here for that," she said. "I came to work. If you don't need help, I'll leave." There was a long silence. The wind moved through the grass behind her. A horse snorted in the distance. Caleb studied her face again, this time more carefully. He saw the tired lines around her eyes, the way her hands shook slightly from hunger and cold. Something in his expression changed, just for a moment.
"Why are you alone?"
"I'm a widow," Clara replied. "My husband passed away last winter."
"I had no family left in town. I couldn't stay." Caleb looked away. He turned his head toward the open land as if he did not want her to see his face. "You should go back," he said. "This place isn't kind." "I'm not asking for kindness," Clara said. "Just a chance." Another long pause passed. Caleb finally stepped aside. "You can stay one night," he said. "There's space in the barn. That's all." Clara's shoulders relaxed. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was quiet, but full of relief. Caleb nodded once and walked back inside. Clara stood there for a moment, then followed his direction toward the barn. The building was large and smelled of hay and animals. She found a small corner where the ground was dry and soft with straw. She set her bundle down and sat, feeling both tired and grateful. As the sun lowered in the sky, Clara watched the ranch come to life with evening sounds. The horses were led into their places. A dog ran past her, tail wagging. She could hear Caleb moving inside the house, the sound of dishes and footsteps. Her stomach growled. She pressed a hand against it, hoping the feeling would pass. She wondered if she would be asked to leave in the morning. She did not know where she would go next. Later, the door of the barn opened. Caleb stood there with a small bowl in his hand. He did not come close. He set it down on a crate a few steps away. "Soup," he said. "It's not much." Clara's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. "Thank you," she said again. She picked up the bowl and ate slowly, trying not to rush. The soup was simple, but it was warm, and it filled her with strength. Caleb watched her for a moment, then turned to leave. Before he stepped out, he stopped. "If you're still here in the morning," he said, "we'll see what you can do." Clara smiled, just a little. "I'll be here," she said. That night, Clara lay on the straw, looking up at the dark roof of the barn. The stars peeked through small gaps in the wood. She thought about her husband, about the life she had lost, and the strange new path she was on. She felt scared, but also hopeful. In the house, Caleb sat alone at his table. He stared at the empty chair across from him. He had not meant to be cruel with his words earlier, but they had come out that way, as they often did. He had learned long ago to push people away before they could leave him first. He remembered Clara's face, the way she had stood her ground even when he tried to scare her. He shook his head and stood up, as if trying to push the thought away. Morning came with soft light and cool air. Clara woke early. She brushed the straw from her dress and stepped outside. The land looked different in the morning, calm and full of quiet promise. Caleb was already up, fixing a fence near the field. He glanced at Clara as she approached. "You said you could work," he said.
"Yes," Clara replied. "Tell me what to do."
He handed her a bucket. "Water the horses, then come back." Clara nodded and did as she was told. The work was hard, and the bucket felt heavy, but she did not complain. She moved from one task to another, following Caleb's simple instructions. By midday, her arms ached and her feet were sore, but she felt proud. Caleb watched her from time to time. He saw that she did not stop, did not slow down. He saw how she spoke gently to the animals, how she wiped her hands on her dress and kept going. As the sun reached its highest point, Caleb called out to her. "That's enough for now," he said. He pointed toward the house. "There's food inside." Clara hesitated. "Are you sure?" she asked. He nodded. "You earned it." She followed him inside. The kitchen was simple but clean. They ate in silence at first. The only sound was the clink of spoons against bowls. After a while, Clara spoke. "Thank you for letting me stay," she said. Won't be any trouble." Caleb looked at her, really looked at her this time. "We'll see," he said. But his voice was not as hard as before. Outside, the wind moved through the grass and the ranch stood strong against the wide-open land. Two people, both carrying their own losses, sat at the same table, not knowing yet that their lives had begun to change. The day went on, and Clara kept working, and Caleb kept watching. Neither of them spoke about the future, but in the quiet space between them, something new was starting to grow. The morning light spread across the ranch like a soft blanket. Clara woke before the sun fully rose, her body still sore from the long day before. She sat up slowly in the barn, brushing straw from her hair and dress. For a moment, she wondered if the work had all been a dream. Then she heard the quiet sounds of animals moving and the low wind outside, and she knew she was still here. She stepped outside and took a deep breath. The air felt fresh and cool. The land stretched far in every direction, and the sky slowly changed from pale blue to warm gold. It was peaceful, but it also felt lonely, like a place that held many stories but told them only to those who stayed long enough to listen. Clara walked toward the house, unsure if Caleb would already be awake. She did not want to disturb him, but she also did not want to seem lazy. Before she reached the porch, she saw him in the yard, fixing a broken post near the fence. "Good morning," she said softly. Caleb looked up. "You're early," he replied. "I like to start before the day gets too hot," Clara said. "What should I do first?" He thought for a moment. "There's bread to bake and clothes to wash. After that, you can help with the chickens." She went inside and began her work. The kitchen felt warmer than the barn, and the smell of flour and water mixing filled the air as she shaped the bread. While it baked, she carried clothes to a tub outside and scrubbed them with steady hands. The work was tiring, but it felt good to be useful again. As she worked, she thought about her old home in town. She remembered the small house she had shared with her husband, the sound of his laughter, and the way he used to bring her wild flowers from the fields. The memories made her chest ache, but she did not stop. She had learned that if she stayed busy, the sadness did not grow as heavy. Caleb watched her from a distance. He noticed how she moved with care, how she did not rush but also did not waste time. There was a quiet strength in her that he had not expected. He told himself he did not care, but his eyes kept finding her anyway. Later in the morning, a ranch hand named Thomas arrived. He was younger than Caleb and had a friendly face. He tipped his hat when he saw Clara. "Didn't know we had a new helper," Thomas said with a smile. Clara smiled back. "Just for now," she replied. Thomas laughed lightly. "Around here, just for now often turns into a long time." Caleb cleared his throat. "Get to work," he said to Thomas, but there was no real anger in his voice. The three of them spent the day working across the land. Clara helped collect eggs, fed the animals, and carried water where it was needed. Thomas talked as he worked, telling small stories about the town and the people who lived there. Clara listened, grateful for the sound of another voice. "People in town like to talk," Thomas said at one point. "They'll notice you here soon enough." Clara felt a small knot form in her stomach. "I don't want to cause trouble," she said. Thomas shrugged. "You're not causing anything. They just like to make stories when they're bored." Caleb, who had been listening, spoke up. "Let them talk," he said. "This is my land." Clara looked at him, surprised. He did not meet her eyes, but she felt a strange sense of comfort in his words. That afternoon, a man from town rode up to the fence. He was well-dressed and wore a clean hat that did not match the dust of the road. His name was Mr. Hale, a land buyer known for trying to convince people to sell their property. "Caleb," he called out, "we should talk." Caleb walked toward the fence, his face hard. "I've told you before. I'm not selling." "Mister." Hale smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. "You've got a lot of land here, more than you can handle alone." Clara stood back, watching. She felt uneasy. Hale's gaze moved to her, and his smile faded. "And who's this?" he asked.
"None of your business," Caleb said.
Hale raised an eyebrow. "People in town will be curious," he said. "A woman living out here with you?" Clara felt her face warm, but she said nothing. Caleb stepped closer to the fence.
"You should go," he said. "Mr. S.?"
Hale tipped his hat. Just think about my offer, he said before riding away. The air felt heavy after he left. Clara looked at Caleb. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't mean to bring trouble. Caleb shook his head. He's been coming here long before you arrived, he said. Don't worry about him. That evening they sat outside as the sun went down. The sky turned orange and pink, and the land grew quiet. Thomas had gone home, leaving just Clara and Caleb at the ranch. Clara sat on a crate near the porch. Caleb leaned against a post. For a while, neither of them spoke. You work hard, Caleb finally said. Clara looked up, surprised. Thank you, she replied. He nodded once. You remind me of someone? Who? Clara asked. Caleb hesitated. My wife? He said quietly. She passed away years ago. Clara's heart softened. I'm sorry, she said. I know how that feels. They shared a long silence, not uncomfortable, but thoughtful. It was the first time they had spoken about their losses. I built this ranch with her, Caleb continued. Every fence, every wall. When she was gone, I didn't see the point in fixing things anymore. But the land doesn't care about sadness. It still needs work. Clara nodded. I learned the same thing after my husband passed, she said. The world keeps moving, even when you don't want it to. Caleb looked at her then, really looked at her. You're stronger than you think, he said. Clara smiled faintly. So are you. The days that followed were much the same. Clara worked, and Caleb slowly grew used to her being there. They spoke more, sometimes about the land, sometimes about small memories from their pasts. The walls between them did not fall all at once, but they began to crack. In town, people started to notice. Some were kind, others less so. Whispers followed Clara when she went to buy supplies with Thomas. She kept her head high and did not answer them. One afternoon, a woman in the market spoke sharply. What kind of woman lives alone on a ranch with a man, she asked. Clara felt her chest tighten. I live there because I work there, she said calmly. She returned to the ranch that day feeling tired in a different way. The land felt safer than the town, even with all its hard work. Caleb noticed her quiet mood. Something happen? He asked. Just words, Clara said. I can handle them. Caleb's jaw tightened. You shouldn't have to, he said. That night, as the stars filled the sky, Clara sat in the barn again, looking up at the roof. She thought about the path her life had taken. She did not know where it would lead, but for the first time in a long while, she did not feel completely alone. In the house, Caleb stood by the window, looking out toward the barn. He told himself he was just checking on the animals, but he knew that was not the truth. He was checking on her. Both of them lay awake that night, thinking about the same thing without saying it out loud. The ranch was no longer just a place of work or shelter. It was becoming something else, something that felt like the beginning of a new chapter they were not yet ready to name. The days grew warmer, and the land around the ranch began to change color. The grass turned brighter, and small flowers appeared near the fence lines. Clara noticed these small details as she worked. She found comfort in them, as if the land itself was quietly welcoming her. Each morning, she and Caleb followed a simple routine. He handled the heavy work in the fields, and she took care of the house, animals, and smaller tasks. Sometimes Thomas came to help, bringing news from town and a light spirit that made the long hours pass more easily. But not all news was good. One afternoon, Thomas arrived, looking uneasy. He leaned against the fence and wiped his brow. People are talking more than usual, he said. Mr. Abadee's cause? Hale's been spreading stories? Caleb frowned.
What kind of stories?
About the land, Thomas said, and about Clara. He's saying you're distracted, that you're not running the ranch right anymore. He says you might be ready to sell. Clara felt her stomach twist. I never meant to cause trouble, she said quietly. Caleb shook his head. This isn't your fault, he said firmly. Hale has wanted this land for years. He just found a new way to push. That evening, Clara could not focus on her work. Her hands moved slowly as she washed dishes, her thoughts spinning. She did not want to be the reason Caleb lost his home. The ranch had become more than just a place to stay. It felt like the only place in the world where she truly belonged. Later, as the sun dipped low, Clara walked toward the edge of the field. The sky was painted with soft colors, and the air felt calm. She did not notice Caleb following her until he spoke. You're thinking too hard, he said. She turned. I don't want to be a burden, she replied. If I'm making things worse for you, I can leave. Caleb's face tightened. Don't say that, he said. You're not a burden. You help more than you know. Clara looked down at the ground. People in town don't see it that way. Caleb stepped closer. I don't care what they see, he said.
This is my land, my life.
And you're part of it now, whether they like it or not. His words surprised both of them. Clara looked up, meeting his eyes. There was a truth there that neither of them had spoken before. The next morning brought trouble. A small group of men rode up to the ranch. At the front was Mr. Hale, his clean hat and sharp smile standing out against the dust. With him were two men from town and the sheriff. Caleb walked out to meet them, his shoulders squared. Clara stood back near the porch, her heart pounding.
Morning, Mr. Hale said.
We're here on official business. The sheriff cleared his throat. There have been complaints, he said, about the use of this land and about someone living here without proper reason. Caleb's eyes narrowed. This is my land, he said. I decide who stays. Mr. Hale smiled again. Of course, he said, but the town likes things to be clear and proper. A lone woman living here raises questions. Clara felt a wave of anger rise inside her, stronger than her fear. She stepped forward. I work here, she said. Do I earn my place? The sheriff looked at her, then at Caleb. Is that true? He asked. Caleb nodded. Every day, he said. She works as hard as anyone. Mr. Hale laughed softly. Even so, he said, this land could be put to better use. I still have an offer for you, Caleb, a fair price. You could leave all this behind. Caleb took a step closer to the fence. I'm not selling, he said. Not today, not ever. The air felt tense, like a storm about to break. For a moment, no one spoke. Even the horses nearby seemed to sense it, shifting their weight and snorting softly. The sheriff finally spoke. We'll be watching, he said. Make sure everything stays in order. With that, the group turned and rode away, leaving behind a trail of dust and unease. Clara let out a breath she did not know she was holding. I'm sorry, she said again. Caleb looked at her. Stop saying that, he replied. You stood up for yourself. That takes courage. That night, the ranch felt different. The quiet was heavier, filled with worry instead of peace. Clara lay in the barn, staring at the dark ceiling. She wondered if Caleb would really lose the land. She wondered if she should leave to protect him. In the house, Caleb paced the floor. He knew Mr. Tobin now. Hale would not stop. He had seen that look before, the look of a man who wanted something badly and did not care how he got it. The next day, a fence post was found broken near the far field. The day after that, a gate was left open and one of the horses wandered off. These were small things, but they felt like warnings. Clara helped Caleb search for the horse. They walked side by side through tall grass and low hills. The sun beat down and sweat ran down their faces. "I don't like this," Clara said. "It feels like someone's trying to scare us." Caleb nodded. "They are," he said.
"But I won't be pushed out." They found the horse near a small stream. As they led it back, Clara slipped on the muddy ground and nearly fell.
Caleb reached out and caught her arm. For a moment, they stood very close. Clara could feel his steady grip, his warmth. Their eyes met, and the world seemed to grow quiet around them. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Yes," she said softly. He did not let go right away. When he finally did, they both looked away, unsure of what to say. Later that evening, Thomas came by again. "People are saying Hale's planning something bigger," he warned, "trying to get more men on his side." Caleb clenched his fists. "Let him try," he said. "I won't back down." Clara looked at him with a mix of worry and admiration. She saw not just a rough rancher, but a man fighting for the only home he had left. That night, Clara made a decision. She walked up to the porch and found Caleb sitting there, staring out at the dark land.
"I'm staying," she said. "No matter what happens."
"I won't run." Caleb looked at her, surprised. Then he nodded slowly. "I'm glad," he said. The stars shone brightly above them, silent and steady. The ranch stood strong in the darkness, and so did the two people who now called it home. Trouble was still coming, but they were no longer facing it alone. The night after Clara told Caleb she was staying, the ranch felt quieter than ever. The wind moved gently through the grass, and the stars shone like small lights in the dark sky. Clara lay in the barn, staring up at the wooden beams, thinking about her choice. She knew staying would not be easy. Trouble was close, and Mr. Hale would not stop. But for the first time in a long while, she felt strong enough to face whatever came. Caleb did not sleep much that night either. He sat at the small table in his house, looking at an old picture of his late wife. Her gentle smile reminded him of a time when the ranch felt full of laughter instead of silence. He thought about Clara and how she had brought a new kind of life to the land. He felt torn between fear and hope, two feelings he had tried to avoid for years. Morning came with a heavy sky, dark clouds gathered in the distance, and the air felt thick, like a storm was on its way. Clara woke early and stepped outside. The wind tugged at her dress, and she could smell rain in the air. Caleb was already in the yard, checking the fence lines. "We might get a storm today," he said. Clara nodded. "Then we should make sure everything is ready." They worked together, moving tools inside, tying down loose boards, and guiding the animals closer to shelter. Thomas arrived later, helping without saying much. Even he seemed to feel the tension in the air. By midday, the clouds rolled in fast. Thunder echoed across the land, deep and loud. Rain began to fall in heavy drops, turning the dry ground into dark, soft soil. Clara hurried into the barn, helping the animals stay calm. She spoke softly to them, her voice steady even as the thunder grew louder. The storm felt like a sign, as if the land itself was reacting to the trouble building around the ranch. Caleb stood near the barn door, watching the rain fall. His thoughts were far away, on Mr. Hale and the men who wanted his land. He knew the storm outside was not the only one he had to face. When the rain finally slowed, the world felt clean and quiet again. The sky opened to show pale blue patches, and the land glistened with water. Clara stepped outside, breathing in the fresh air. That was when she saw something near the fence. A group of men stood in the distance, talking. She recognized Mr. Hale among them. Her heart skipped. She ran to find Caleb. "They're back," she said. Caleb walked toward the fence, his face calm, but his eyes sharp. Thomas followed close behind. Mr. Hale smiled as they approached. "We just came to talk," he said. "No need for worry." Caleb crossed his arms. "You've done enough talking," he replied. Mr. Hale's smile faded. "You're making things hard for yourself," he said. "The town is on my side. You're alone out here." Clara stepped forward. "He's not alone," she said. The men looked at her, surprised by her boldness. Mr. Hale laughed softly. "You think you can change how this ends?" he asked. "I think you don't own this land," Clara replied. "And you don't get to decide who belongs here." The sheriff, who had come with them again, cleared his throat. "Let's all calm down," he said.
No one wants trouble. Caleb took a step closer to the fence. "Then leave," he said.
"And don't come back." There was a long, tense pause. Finally, Mr. Piran. Hale tipped his hat. "This isn't over," he said before turning away. The men rode off, leaving the ranch quiet once more. Clara felt her hands shaking. Caleb noticed and placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You did good," he said. She looked up at him. "I was scared," she admitted. "So was I," he replied. But we stood our ground. That evening they sat together on the porch. The land stretched out in front of them, glowing softly in the fading light. "I've spent a long time pushing people away," Caleb said. "I thought it was safer that way." Clara listened quietly. "But when you came here," he continued, "you didn't leave when things got hard. You stayed. That means something." Clara looked at him, her eyes gentle. "I stayed because this place gave me a chance," she said. "And because you did too?" They sat in silence for a while, the kind that felt peaceful instead of empty. Over the next few days, the town began to change its tone. Some people stopped by the ranch, bringing small things like fresh bread or news. Not everyone believed Mr. Hale's stories anymore. They had seen how hard Clara worked and how Caleb cared for his land. One afternoon, an older woman from town arrived with a basket of fruit. "I wanted to see for myself," she said. "I hear you've been keeping this place running strong," Clara smiled. "We try our best." The woman nodded. "That's all anyone can ask." After she left, Clara felt lighter. It was the first time in a long while that the town felt less like an enemy and more like a neighbor. That night, a fire burned low outside the house. Caleb and Clara sat near it, warming their hands. "I don't know what the future holds," Clara said. "Neither do I," Caleb replied. "But I know I don't want to face it alone." Clara met his eyes. There was no rush, no big promise spoken out loud. Just a quiet understanding. The land around them was still, the stars bright above. The ranch, once a place of loneliness and loss, now felt like something new, a place of courage, of second chances, and of two people finding their way forward together. Somewhere in the distance, a horse let out a soft sound. The wind carried it across the fields, a reminder that life went on, steady and strong. Clara leaned back slightly, feeling the warmth of the fire and the calm of the moment. Caleb sat beside her, not too close, not too far, just enough to share the quiet. Trouble might return, challenges might come again. But for now, the ranch stood peaceful under the night sky, and two hearts, once guarded by pain and fear, were slowly learning how to trust and hope again. The morning light came softly over the hills, painting the ranch in gentle colors of gold and pale blue. Clara stood outside the barn, holding a warm cup of water, watching the sun rise. The land felt calm, as if it had taken a deep breath after many long days of tension. She thought about how far she had come. Not just the long walk from town to the ranch, but the journey inside her heart. She remembered the fear she had felt when she first knocked on Caleb's door. Now, standing here, she felt something else. She felt like she belonged. Caleb stepped out of the house, pulling on his jacket. He saw Clara by the barn and walked over. "Morning?" he said. "Morning," she replied with a small smile. They stood together for a moment, looking at the open land. The grass moved gently in the breeze, and the animals began their slow, familiar sounds of waking. "Today feels different," Clara said. Caleb nodded. "I was thinking the same." They started their work like any other day, but there was a new ease between them. They talked more, laughed once or twice, and shared small stories. It was not loud or grand, but it was warm and steady. Later that morning, Thomas arrived on his horse, waving as he came through the gate.
"You're not going to believe this," he said, barely stopping before speaking. Caleb raised an eyebrow.
"Try me." Thomas smiled. "Mr. Pale is leaving town, packed up last night. Seems like his plans didn't turn out the way he hoped." Clara felt a rush of relief. "He's really gone?" she asked. "Looks that way," Thomas said. "People finally saw through his stories. The town decided they'd rather support someone who actually cares about the land." Caleb let out a long breath. "That's good news," he said. Thomas grinned. "I thought you'd like to hear it first." After Thomas left, Clara and Caleb stood quietly for a moment, letting the news sink in. "It's over," Clara said softly. Caleb nodded. "Seems like it." The weight that had been hanging over the ranch for so long finally lifted. The land felt lighter, the air clearer. That afternoon, a few people from town came by. One brought fresh bread. Another offered help fixing a broken part of the fence. It was not much, but it meant more than they could say. Clara thanked each person, her heart full. She had never expected to be welcomed like this. The town that once whispered about her now smiled and waved. As the sun began to set, Caleb and Clara walked to the edge of the field. The sky was wide and beautiful, filled with colors that seemed to stretch forever. "I never thought I'd see this place like this again," Caleb said. "Full of people, full of life." Clara looked at him. "You built something strong here," she said. "Not just with wood and land, but with care." Caleb shook his head. "I couldn't have done it alone." They stood in silence, watching the last light fade from the sky. That night, they sat on the porch with a small lantern between them. The stars came out one by one, bright and steady. "Do you ever miss the life you had before?" Clara asked. Caleb thought for a moment. "Sometimes," he said, "but I've learned that holding on to the past too tightly can stop you from seeing what's right in front of you." Clara nodded. "I used to think my life ended when my husband passed," she said. "I didn't believe I could ever feel hopeful again." Caleb looked at her, his expression gentle. "I felt the same when I lost my wife," he said. "This ranch became a place of quiet and shadows. I thought that was all it would ever be." "And now?" Clara asked. "And now," he said, It feels like a place where something new can grow. The wind moved softly through the grass. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called out, its sound calm and steady. Over the next few days, life settled into a peaceful rhythm. Clara helped in the house and the fields. Caleb worked on new plans for the land, talking about planting more crops and building a better shelter for the animals. One afternoon, Caleb handed Clara a small piece of paper. "I made a list," he said. "Things I want to fix, things I want to build." Clara smiled as she read it.
It's a good list, she said. He shrugged.
It's easier to think about the future when you're not alone. That evening, Clara found a small garden patch behind the house. The soil was dark and soft from the rain that had passed days before. "I thought I might plant something here," she said. Caleb knelt down beside her. "What kind of plant? I don't know yet," she replied. "Something simple. Something that grows slowly." He nodded. "That sounds about right." They worked together, turning the soil and making space for new seeds. The task was small, but it felt meaningful. As the weeks passed, the ranch became a place of quiet joy. The animals were healthy. The land looked strong. People from town stopped by now and then, bringing news or just stopping to talk. Clara and Caleb grew closer, not in a loud or rushed way, but in the slow, steady way of two people learning to trust again. They shared meals, stories, and long evenings watching the sky. One night, as they sat by the fire, Caleb spoke softly. "I don't know what tomorrow will bring," he said, "but I know I want you here." Clara felt her heart warm. "I want to be here," she replied. There was no grand promise, no big moment, just a quiet truth between them. The next morning, Clara woke early and went to check the garden patch. Small green leaves had begun to push through the soil. She smiled and called out to Caleb, "Come look." He walked over, kneeling beside her. "Looks like it's growing," he said. Clara nodded. "So are we." They stood up together, looking out at the land. The sun rose high, filling the sky with light. The ranch, once a place of loneliness and worry, now felt like a home. Not just a shelter from the world, but a place where two people had found a reason to keep moving forward. The road ahead was still wide and unknown, but they were ready to walk it side by side. As the day began, Clara and Caleb went back to their work. Not as two strangers who had met by chance, but as partners in a life they were building together, one quiet, steady moment at a time.